What's going on, Polar fam? This is Shibbear, community leader for Polar, to go over another community AMA on this Tuesday, May 24th, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. UTC, same time, same place. Every week here in the Discord, this is our way to be able to reach out and engage with the community on a very regular basis so that any questions that you may have for us, we may answer for you. Obviously, this has been a week. This has been a not great week by any real regards. You could say the last 2 weeks have not been very great, but we're here to work with you here to answer any questions, go over some of the changes that were implemented, and also give you a platform to, vent if you want, ask direct questions. You guys know that I'm a very straightforward, very honest person, so hit me up and I'll give you the real answers. We can talk here, kind of go over things, what the long-term vision is, what the changes are going to do for the short term, and how this is all going to be orchestrated in the ideal aspect as we move forward. So I know I already have somebody that requested to speak very early on. I do want to go over some of the changes that were implemented, but I will bring you up here just because you were so kind to request to speak very early. Maybe not kind, maybe kind. I guess we'll find out here. But Herb Cheese, I'm going to bring you up here live. Old Herb, whenever you get that request, you can accept it and you will be brought in live. Old Herb, going once, going twice. Young Herb, I might have to dismiss you, but you can always request to speak and I'll bring you back up. Until then, Sandman, I will bring you live because you are often engaged here. How's it going, Sandman?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Pretty wild, crazy couple of weeks, but I'm still here, man. I'm still invested, paying attention. I haven't been as active in terms of commenting in the Discord chat, but I'm reading all the comments. It's just like it gets a little bit tiresome in terms of just dealing with some of the negativity. This is crypto, man. Like I think like a lot of people don't realize 80, 90% nukes, like it happens all the time, but there's projects that recover and then there's that don't. But if we're invested in it and the team, isn't actually rugging or pulling the plug, that means they're fighting for us, because anybody could just do that and they could just be gone. But again, I think at the same time, if we're invested in it, being positive, and some of the comments like being constructive are great. Like that's what we need is a dialogue and having a positive attitude. We all lose money in crypto. That's part of the game. But I still believe that this project is going to make a nice bounce back, and I'm here for it. So I just wanted to say that that's not even a question, but that's my vent. That's my rant.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you there, and it's one of those things. That's a great conversation to have to kind of start this out. There's a difference in three different things, right? So there's going through a hard time. That's kind of usually what happens first. Then does the team fail, let it fail, and then it's not a rug, it's just a legitimate fail? Do they rug it completely, which is a malicious and oftentimes criminal act? Or do they keep fighting, even if it does fail, if it succeeds, it fails, as long as they keep fighting, at least then you have a chance.
Right.
That's kind of where we sit with Polar. Well, so that's
I agree with you. Exactly. Well said. So yeah, I mean, as far as questions, like again, for me, it's like I'm just trying to think about things that are coming in the future. Regardless if the price is 5, 10, or 15 cents. I have 10 nodes and I'm invested and I'm a part of the community. So that's how I see it. The amount of Everest that I have, sure, the rewards are different right now, but when in times of where if we do bounce back and we do well, it could be returned to their normal state. Or however it is we pivot, I am invested. I have, I want to say I have like skin in the game. And at the end of the
I promise I didn't kick you out, man. I don't know where you went, but if you're still here, I'll bring him back up on the stage. You just someone pulled the plug on you, I think, but it wasn't me. They were mad at you being too positive, I think. So I think what you're getting at, man, so this is the thing about node protocols is we are invested, right? This is a sunk cost economic theory where you did purchase this thing here, this node, and now you don't give it back. You don't get to say, okay, well, where is the flip on this? The flip is on the future return. So you're basically betting on a larger return in the future. That's what the general sunk cost economic theory is going to go into, as I've talked about for months at this point. So keep that in mind. We have these nodes here, right? So we are engaged. We are invested, however you want to call it, and not just us on our own level, but the entire core team has done nothing but put so much time. And I know we're thinking about that here and now. I can personally attest to many of nights into 4 or 5 in the morning that Salty was putting into for the updates back in February, back in January, back in March, back in April. Like this team has been working literally around the clock for months. And we did hit a very negative point. One point that I've talked about months ago where once you hit this brick wall, it is challenging to recover. But just like I said back then in reference to other protocols, that doesn't mean it's the end. We've seen others hit that brick wall. And as long as they don't quit, there is a future to still be had. Maybe the future isn't in the 3+% daily ROI and the incredibly high returns, but maybe it is truly a more long-term sustainable play. That's what the transition has to be now, is as we focus on that, because that's a more realistic option. I think that's a better way to look at it than thinking, well, we're going to get back to the point that we can average Polar at $2.50 to $3 because we've minted twice plus our, what our circulating supply was, right? So that's much more difficult. It's not impossible, but it is the most likely aspect is we need to now be betting on the long-term play and kind of allow the team to build on to that from there. So as we grow from where we are currently, I'm just going to say a quick shout out to the general chat and Mr. Blandy. I do also read the general chat. I multitask, so please do not FUD the general chat during my AMAs. I had one last week and I dealt with it accordingly, so please chill, join the AMA if you have a problem, and we can talk up in here. And as I transition, Jesse, I'm going to bring you up here to speak. I know you were always a great speaker once we got you up here the time before. Unfortunately, only a small portion could hear you, but maybe now is the time, Jesse, whenever you do accept.
Oh, okay, I had to accept. How you doing?
How's it going? I'm going to turn your volume up on my end, but I think you should be good.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. How are you?
All right. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, man. Busy.
Good. Yeah, I could see. So yeah, I just wanted to come for a conversation, really. It's not like I had any major points or big topics. What right now is the main focus of this AMA? Is it just because we do it often, or is there like a main point to discuss that maybe we can talk about?
Yeah, so I just schedule these weekly. Every week, same time, same place. They're just a way for the community to have a routine access to myself.
Perfect.
And that way we can engage there. But I'll answer any question on any topic, including the weather or the sports teams, but ideally in reference to Polar this week. So
Okay, perfect. Okay, so okay, let's just like fire off a few things. Who are all of the mods? Like, do you guys have a mod team, or is it just you that talks to the community? And then that's basically your main responsibility is all mods, or is that what Polar Chiefs are?
yeah, so there are several mods that you can see in the Discord. There's everything from like advisors, which are just an unpaid position. There's different moderators. Mizzo is like kind of the
The lead.
the lead mod. Mine is a community management role. Classically speaking, that's generally the kind of the branch between the core team and not only the moderators, but also the community itself. So I do happen to be a bit
Right.
more engaged directly with the core team, I think, than others. And we all kind of
Okay.
blend our roles together.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I was just gonna say, and like I said, I'm all positive. I'm all for Polar. I'm not worried about anything. But if I had like one vote say, or allowed to put my hand up on something, the moderators are definitely, they have my support in terms of being a little bit more stern on professionalism in the chats. I feel like sometimes we allow investors a little bit too much just because they're invested, which is totally fine. I get it. You want to take care of the people that paid for the project. But, some people are just going to be letting off their steam in unproductive ways, which I've seen in the past little bit. And I think putting the foot down, laying down a solid foundation and professional standards should be the culture. And I think that, the team at least has my back when it comes to those things, and I support it. So I think the team could be a little bit harsher to people that are just here to blow off steam and stuff like that. That's just like a small thing. And then the second was, what are we talking about in terms of moving away from pure inflationary to more like utility and realizing the potential of Polar? Because I do believe that Polar has the highest potential of projects in this category.
Yeah, hey, so great questions on both fronts, or great statement and then question there. So I do agree, and that's something I've been pushing to our mod community, but they seem to take it pretty naturally, is we're not here to get into back and forth disputes with those who want to cause issues, because most of the time when somebody's coming up here, they're either, incredibly emotional because it's down, which is okay, I totally understand that, or they are looking to get something to take a snapshot about or copy and paste and send in a DM to try to make Polar look bad. So our maintaining professionalism has to be key, and we give people the opportunity to talk, and then at some point,
Yeah.
once they become truly malicious, we'll either time them out for a day or whatever the case might be. I kind of let the mods deal with that accordingly, but we can't let it get out of hand, because one or two people can take an entirely peaceful chat and push it to straight toxicity very, very quickly. So there's a
True.
little line there,
True.
but
All right, glad you were able to answer that.
yeah. And then the second part there is basically that's the thing that the community team has to work on and solve. And I proposed a few different things, which include the decrease in emissions that we saw yesterday. I'm not saying that I had like any major push in that, because I'm not a decision maker. I'm just a community manager, but I do talk to Enor literally every day. I said, hey, our emissions are out of hand. Our rewards pool gets depleted so fast, it's ridiculous. We cannot be offering super high ROIs right now. We can't be doing it. The way they enacted it was quickly, because the rewards pool went to zero while they were working out those options, right? So now we've had to mint more Polar. We have something like 2.325 million Polar now in circulation rather than 1 million. So another thing that I have proposed, at least in the short term, was, I don't think they're going to necessarily do it, but this is just an idea, right? Is finding a way to implement some sort of a burn system involving the tax that we are now incorporating, where direct Polar from that tax gets sent directly to a burn wallet, right? So that is something to help cause, or at least change that inflationary roll, while we then progress towards that, I guess, new theory of Polar, which would be that revenue share system that Enor posted in the what do I call it? In the announcements. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, no problem. So it's revenue based.
Yes.
Where is the revenue going to come from outside of Polar to benefit Polar holders?
Yeah. So from there, have you seen the updates where it involves like the Polar game, the Polar, all that different things there that have come about it?
In the main announcements or community technical?
Pretty much everywhere. Twitter, they've talked about things like Polar Guardian, like the MMO game Polaris, all that good stuff.
Okay, maybe not, because I just got back to city living. I was out hiking, so maybe I missed a couple of things.
Yeah, no worries. So basically what Polar is doing is we have almost a $1.3 million treasury, right? So instead of using that to invest in things like AVAX staking or whatever, that we will now be moving towards, we build these legitimate businesses. These legitimate businesses have a kickback to the current node holders, which will almost like a revenue share as far as a stake system is concerned. And I hate using this direct comparison, but it's the easiest one to do it, and that would be like dividend stocks, right? So you own some stock in AT&T, you get kickback.
Yeah, okay, sweet. So dividend paying stock, sort of like a node, but with layers. I like that. Cool. Just trying to think if there's anything else. No, those are some pretty good answers. Yeah, as well, I guess any piece of advice to the team, just try to create a culture. You got a lot of people in the Discord, and it's a lot easier to have the general, slightly educated members on your side, and then that way they don't get agitated from direct fighters that mods have to handle themselves. So I think just focus on how to create an army within the Polar community, and that way people will be like, nah, this isn't worth fighting about, dude. Like, you're just fighting your own bag, instead of somebody fighting their own bag and then other people getting agitated and emotional and coming back at them. Just create a culture so that they could take care of themselves with some mod help.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate you, man. And there's a lot that'll be coming up here with Polar in the very, very near future. I think some of the things are going to develop. There's a lot of unknown involved, and especially as the token price falls, people get very nervous, and I totally understand that. So I don't mind people even being emotionally engaged. That tells me that they cared about what we built, right? So we just need to now
Right.
focus it onto the vision, focus it into the future, reassure people that they're not, they didn't lose everything, right? So we are invested in this. Now we have to make this work for everybody involved. And that's you, myself, the
Right.
222 people listening, and those who also are a little bit not great in the chat rooms.
That's all right. It's a full plate. It's never just going to be good or just going to be bad. It's a balance of all of it, and you can decide what you want to do with it. So that's good.
Heck yeah. Hey, I appreciate you, man. Is there anything else I can answer for you while
No
you're up here?
Did the team mention anything about how I approached diminishing diminishing returns on hyper wallets? Because now
So, yeah,
it's becoming like known to people. People are waking up to the idea that like, hey, like these people that were able to make Olympuses or Everests every few hours or minutes, they're just going to eat up all the other nodes as well, and just right, it's going to create bigger divides. So I still think that there should be some form of earth, like come back down to earth, exponential reducing factor. You can still make it exponential, which is the reason to compound. That's why we like compounded interest. But for terms of sustainability, even the biggest whales would have probably appreciated to see some sort of diminishing returns on the most hyper wallets.
yeah. So that has been a big topic within the community as well as within the core team and within myself, right? So there's been several different proposed theories. Without like giving too much about what's going on behind the scenes because none of it's official yet, that has been
Okay.
considered by the core team at least to some variation. So I think what is being worked on is designed to be fair because we do know that people that created Everest, for example, 3 weeks ago, have not reached their ROI and the token price has gone down significantly. So how do you
Hmm.
calculate the return for the degradation principles and all that kind of things there? There is a lot to be considered with that, and I think there will be some progress on that should be announced in the relatively near future.
I like that. I do like how you explained it, where they're focusing on people getting ROI, like as like a concrete statement. Like, okay, these people are not getting ROI. They feel kind of like they got burned. What are we gonna do for them? I do like that. I do like the sentiment around that. I think it's very admirable. I think their best chance would be to create something well-rounded so that it doesn't matter how much people got out of their ROI, because at the end of the day, they still made a risk. So even I think it would be more probable, let's say if someone only reached 50% ROI on investment, real investment, they only reached 50%. Well, there's a higher chance of them getting to like 90%, let's say, or at least an acceptable percentage for themselves. Be like, okay, well, at least I got 85%. Like, that's fine. I took a chance before whatever. That's more likely if you focus on something a little bit more universal as opposed to each individual case. Does that make sense? Instead of worrying about people getting to 100%, worry about the community getting as much as possible through something a little bit more well-rounded. And for me, that is called diminishing returns or a logistical graph.
Yeah, man, actually, I totally agree on that because if you figure the people who made Everest when we first debuted it back on like February, whatever, if that Everest, let's forget about everything else, that Everest itself has significantly developed crazy amounts of returns that ultimately put
Yeah.
a stress on the protocol. You could say we should have taken into account that, which is true, but now we're at a different point where we have to
Yeah.
do something. So I totally get what you're saying there.
Perfect. I'm glad that I was able to voice that with you. And as long as you bring it to the team.
Yeah, of course, man. Like I said, I talk to you Nor literally daily, and especially
Yeah.
lately.
Perfect.
So,
That's good, man. And I appreciate you always, respecting my input. I'm not part of the team, but, I'm glad that we get to be productive.
hey, I appreciate you, man. Good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you.
All right, great questions there. Hey, just quick shout out before I continue to go through all these other speakers here. The amount of people that I see in this, we're up to 222 again in the audience. Last week, if you don't recall, I made a comment. We were down to like the 120s, and I thought that was a little bit strange, right? The passion is still here. Our community is still here. Our team is still here. Our mods are still here. the product is still what it is. Polar is still built what we've built. Now we do need to find a way to transition more efficiently into the future, which I totally agree with. But that being said, this is what'll get us forward as we move beyond this current little bump in the road and progress to this next vision, this next phase of Polar, while still keeping everybody into account for all the work that they've done. And while I say that, welcome the Maestro. I don't know if I've ever talked to you up here yet, but very good to meet you if I have not.
This is the first time. Thank you for having me up there.
Hey, no problem. How you doing?
Good. How's everyone?
I'm doing pretty well, man. Busy.
I can see that with all the sudden decisions that's happening, but it's a tough time. It's not only for Polar; it's everywhere. You go around at the moment with all the cryptos. It's just sort of not stable. Well, the reason that I came up is just I have a suggestion, and I thought speaking it out would make it easier than explaining it in a chat, basically. I've seen that the ROI has been increased and the rewards have been reduced, and I know that people who came up with those packages, they didn't, as you said earlier, that they didn't return even their money. But coming from a rewarding background, I own my own businesses, and one of the things that we give rewards to people in real time based on royalties and things like that. And what we've been doing in order to control the flow of the market and people throwing it into the market again, we've created a policy of redemption period. So basically, instead of people being able to, I know a lot of people will not like this, but it's easier to have a time frame of when people can withdraw the rewards that they have. So it goes and accumulate in their profile, but the redemption period will be controlled like this. Whatever amount that goes into the market for those who wants to sell will be sort of limited instead of just putting it back into the market. And I know that a lot of people that maybe they've returned their initial investment, not like the others. So it sort of creates a balance, and that's what I think.
Yeah, so I think I get what you're saying there. So basically, you're just trying to find a way to control the long-term emissions, right?
Yes. So
Yeah.
basically, the returns, for example, for those who have for Everests, they used to have more than 120, and now it's back to 119. And yesterday or last night or a few hours ago, it was changed, and I think it will drop a little bit more. Instead of them having it based on ROIs, it can be based on how much they accumulate, and they are allowed to release it in phases instead of one go.
Yeah, so I get what you mean there. So I think what Polar is looking to transition to is more like a real world business than some of these other crypto protocols are. And I know you said you're involved in business in the real world. So rather than it being either flippy or like having to change all the time, once we can get a defined actual revenue share system that could be distributed to those who own our NFTs, which are our nodes, I think that'll clarify some of the deficiencies that we do go through with the emissions rate that we currently deal with. In the short term, just reducing emissions gives us time. Like I said, there will be some pretty significant changes in a good way coming. Not like what happened recently where people were very upset the last day or so, but the positivity of the changes will be in the very near future. So I think we are on that. Any suggestions that you have, I do recommend posting them in the Protocol Ideas channel if you do want to get them out in like this is what I wrote up, this is a good strategy, because we do read that and take that into account. Just like Jesse mentioned, we did take what he and I talked about a couple weeks ago, and it did help the core team to kind of develop, potentially a new solution, at least an idea. So we do take into account all the things that come to us here.
That's great. So basically, can I combine the experiences that I have from the NFT world with the tokenomics that they're doing, and from the IRL projects of how the rewards can be done? I know it doesn't have to be exactly what I said, but it might be a stress reliever on on the shoulder of you guys, all in general, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Sure, that would be great. Thank you very much, buddy.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming up here.
Yep, thanks.
All right, so Rocket, I'm going to bring you up here. Whenever we get a lull, I'm going to go over to some of the changes that did occur the last couple of days. But while there's people who want to speak, I will bring you up here. If anybody else would like to request to speak, just do so, and I'll bring you in live. How's it going, Rocket? I can barely hear you, man. Let me see if I can turn you up.
Is this any better?
Yeah, a little bit better. Got you now. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. Thanks. Let me know if I drop out. I can switch over to my phone or something.
Yeah, no worries. It's a little bit quiet, but I can hear you just fine.
Cool. So I've been kind of processing all the changes going on, and I think one of the main things that is probably in the back of a lot of people's minds, we've probably all got our calculators or spreadsheets out looking at, the time frame to node cap, given the current, purchase rate or compound rate, whatever is going on there in terms of consuming the remaining nodes. And I guess the question in the back of my mind really comes down to, you alluded to some positive changes coming soon. Do you expect that some of the changes, then kind of the shifting toward the future of what the protocol is going to be, will be implemented prior to the node cap?
Yeah, so I would suggest that there is going to be, let's see, there's things that are not released yet, so I do need to kind of, I guess choose my words a little bit, but things that are being developed, some of them will be implemented prior to the node cap, I would assume. And don't take that as a direct quote because I'm not the one who actually implements them, but from what I understand, there has been some delays in general that are getting mitigated at this point, and we are able to move forward more efficiently. So it's a good thing. So I don't know if like some of the bigger, huge debuts are going to be out there, but there is going to be some positive transitions as we go through the next days and weeks.
Very cool. Very cool. And along with that, I know Salty had mentioned in some of the comments, some of the projects that are relying on Polar Guardian or going to be using the multi-sig are, trying to time their launch. Have we seen, do we know time frame wise when we expect some of that to start actually generating some of the revenue?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. That's nothing that I know too much about from my end, so I don't want to pretend like I do. I've not been heavily involved with Polar Guardian, nor the protocols that are implemented under them, or with the VC or any of that stuff that they've been working on. But I do know Salty said it would be kind of negotiated on a per case basis, right? So there's been like that minor nodes or whatever, some of the smaller ones that are, kind of like a VC branch. Then there's like the Polar Guardian kind of stuff, which is a little bit bigger, more involved. So I think there's multiple different approaches to it. And I don't think that is going to be like a one-stop shop. This is going to solve all of our problems. But it does give us a little bit more opportunity to grow the true theory that we can move to a revenue share system in the future.
Nice. And this is kind of probably a question that's maybe doesn't have an answer right now, but it would be interesting to hear from the team in general, is that I've been just, happenstance in some Discords, kind of watching some projects where there have been recent like exploits or hacks of the contract that just haven't been secured properly. Some of them not being on Avalanche. And I'm wondering, if they're serious about getting their project secure and getting restarted, kind of redoing it the right way now that they've learned a painful lesson, is the Polar Guardian really at a point where it would be good to like kind of connect those projects in, or is it still early enough where it's like, oh, we don't want to take on, something of that magnitude?
Yeah, so that's a good question on the general capabilities of Polar Guardian itself. So one of the biggest, I guess, marketing pushes, you could say, under the Polar Guardian technical wing is that there would be a smart contract implementation, which would prevent anybody within the contract, any of the owners or anything, to have access to the liquidity pool or to some of the other acts that you can do as an owner of the contract that would lead to a rug pull. So why those two things are important is if you are an owner of a contract and you steal the liquidity pool, the token is now worthless. It has no value to it, no backing to it, right? Additionally, as an owner of a contract in a node protocol, you could do something like mint one node that automatically populates 1 million of that native token, and then they claim all that token, and they just basically remove it from the entire system. So those are the two main rug pull kind of aspects that we've seen out there. And that's kind of the push of Polar Guardian, is to say, hey, if you utilize this, then this eliminates the ability for some of these things to happen. It does not make it totally foolproof. So I guess more so to answer your question specifically, it's what are they trying to resolve? What is their issue that they are getting Polar Guardian involved with? And I think that'll help solve the capabilities question on our end.
Yeah, that's helpful. It just kind of made me wonder, because it seems like some of these projects, they, like for one that I'm thinking of, they had their contract audited, maybe not to an extremely thorough level. They had a developer that kind of came on to help a developer, and it looks like, I think the failure was that developer basically minted a massive amount of tokens and sold them off very quickly, and thereby draining the liquidity pool as opposed to like direct access. So things that really probably shouldn't be able to be done if the security was implemented correctly. Some of the folks in the project are still talking about trying to save it because there's other assets like the Treasury that weren't affected, but obviously there was some security mishaps somewhere along the line. So things like that is kind of what's in the back of my mind, because unfortunately it's more common than not. And I've started to see that need more and more out there, and even some other protocols trying to kind of up the ante of providing a better multi-sig or a better KYC. So it just made me wonder if it's a good time to start kind of pulling people towards looking at the Polar Guardian solution.
Yeah, hey, that's great. And I'm going to ask you a pretty direct question. You don't have to answer. Are you talking about Unicorn?
No, but it reminded me a lot of Unicorn because of how similar it was. And so actually it was just very recently Bamboo that had a very strange and kind of similar meltdown. I'm still kind of keeping an eye on Unicorn just to see what happens there. And Bamboo, I have no idea what's going to happen with it, but it's a bit of a different project. It's more of a tomb fork, but it was a pretty sudden meltdown, unfortunately.
Yeah, so kind of what happens there is generally there is a super owner super owner of the contract, right? And this super owner can add or remove other owners to the contract or give another super owner contract. With what happened with Unicorn, from what I understand, is they had a previous super owner. He allegedly no longer wanted to be involved, said, okay, well, I'm going to leave, but I'll make this guy an owner. And then they remained as a super owner. Then once it was kind of established, that's when this is allegedly what occurred anyway, that original dev basically rugged it from the super owner perspective. So that's on the team. I'm going to be very straightforward at that. If you don't let that happen, you say, hey, you're going to leave, make me the super owner, I'm going to remove you, you're gone. You cannot access my contract. And then you find a new dev. So that's on them. Nothing Polar Guardian can do about people who just don't have a knowledge base to succeed in this very fragile and sometimes malicious game.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because there are definitely some team deficiencies or just even some basic security deficiencies that I see out there that can prevent some of this, or at least slow it down. Awesome, I appreciate it. I'm really interested to see how things go forward. Even operating a business myself, I'm very keen to see how the transition to more of kind of revenue and sharing goes for this whole project. I think that could be a really, really good positive thing in the long term. So I can't wait for more updates, and just appreciate you guys working hard and kind of continuing to innovate, not giving up, not throwing your hands up even when stuff is not going great.
Heck yeah. Hey, man, I appreciate you. Good to talk to you again this week.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Peace. All right, Chris, I'm going to bring you up here as well. Chris, you should have a request to speak, and you are gone. Okay. If anybody else would like to request to speak, feel free to do so, and I'll bring you up here live. In the meantime, I'm going to be going over a variety of things, including the changes that occurred. I have a bunch of AMA questions, all that good stuff there. So the most significant change that occurred over the last day or so was that rewards were reduced without notice, caused a very, very substantial storm in the protocol. Prior to that happening, we had a major sell-off over the course of about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, where the sales were substantially higher than the buys, and it became literally kind of egregious. So, as an example, yesterday was Monday, so Sunday evening on Central Time. Hey, there's Frey. What's going on, Frey? So Sunday evening Central Time. If he does key up, I guess I'll let him talk. Don't know. But anyway, we had 191,000 Polar tokens in the distribution pool that I personally observed. I looked at it and I'm like, okay, cool. We're still doing okay. 191,000. The next day, next afternoon, Central Time, we got some, people saying we can't claim. I'm like, that's interesting. So I looked at the pool. It was about 25 Polar was in there, like 25.0 Polar, right? So barely enough for any average person to claim. So from there was some decisions that had to be made, right? So we did mint another 200,000 Polar. And the main question I get is, why did the team not give people notice? Because if we gave you, let's say, 48 hours notice, 24 hours notice, whatever it was, everybody would have claimed. We would have had to mint another 500,000, maybe even another 750,000 Polar over the next 2 days for everyone to claim. And I know that is like, hey, that's what we should do. Now your token is devalued by another 50%, for example, because the market cap is now ceilinged much, much lower than it was previously. So what the core team elected to do was say, hey, we need to make a very quick, very knowingly, I guess, emotional driving decision. We understand that it was going to be rough, and they said, we're just going to make these changes now, and then we're going to announce it because people cannot claim anyway. If we gave them time to claim, they couldn't claim. If we minted more Polar, their Polar is devalued by more than it currently has been since we enacted that change. So that was the decision that was made. If we gave you 2 days without adding to the rewards pool, you would not have been able to claim. If we added to the rewards pool, we would have added another 500 to 750,000 Polar over the next few days to allow everybody to claim, and then it would have further put us into this hole that would be more difficult to dig ourselves out of, right? So that was a decision that was made. Just like everybody else, this is how it occurred. Any pending rewards by the contract are adjusted to the new formula. So that's how rewards were reduced if they were not claimed or compounded prior to that time. So I do understand that it was rough. Yesterday was a very stressful day for me because you guys know how engaged I am with the community, and you know how much time we put into this. You've seen me pull over 24-hour shifts in our Discord straight. You've seen Mizzo do the same thing. All of us here working our asses off to try to give you guys a good product, give you guys a good line of communication. So we really do try. We really try as hard as we can to get you guys going on where you need to. So I do understand the stress. I know there's been many of people that have supported us the best that they could, and I appreciate that. And quite frankly, through the negative, through the positive, we're going to keep working. I don't look for positivity. I'm not one of those people that needs you to pat me on the back every time I do good, but I will need you to check me when I do poorly, right? While I didn't make the decisions, I'm the community manager, so I'm more than happy to take whatever role and whatever heat I can for that decision that was made and how it was implemented. That's kind of what I'm here for. So throw that at me, throw that at us. We're here to answer the hard questions and move forward. What also came from that was a decrease in the rewards in general. So the Olympus, the Everest, the Ushuaia, haven't looked at the pronunciation of that in a minute, Kilimanjaro, Mount Blanc, Fuji were all decreased to a point that I find much more reasonable. Okay, so 3% plus, 4% plus. It's not possible anymore. We hit a bit of a market crash 2 weeks ago. Hasn't come out yet. It's been pretty level for the last few days, but hasn't come out yet. The demand for these kind of protocols went way down to the point that was unforeseen. And this drove us into this position here where people elected to sell rather than buy and create more nodes. That does not mean that's going to be a permanent thing, but that does mean that is where we are today. I cannot predict the future. I can only assess the past to make a decision here today and now. And I think the decision that was made by the core team was the right one given the circumstances that we are working with. You can argue the implementation, you could argue anything like that, but quite frankly, this is all we could do. This is the only way for us to be able to preserve the protocol, not let it die as we keep working and moving forward. So shout out to you guys. And shout out to Frey, who said he's accidentally jumped in here on the stage, but you are on the stage. So if you do want to talk, you're more than welcome just to jump in at any point in time. But shout out to you regardless. So appreciate you up here. We can join. I feel full. I feel like we are now together as one. So shout out to everything going on there. Hey, I appreciate you guys with the community. I for real do. Those who've joined the AMA, obviously we still have a lot of questions to go over, but it's truly, it's been a hard like 2 weeks here for us, right? So we got to work. We got to keep going. We got to keep moving forward. Now that I have 3 people up here and the request to speak, since I went on my little tangent, I'm going to bring Chris back up. How's it going, Chris? Once you unmute, you will be live.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm at work and just was trying to tune in and out, and then I happened to be on a call when you called me up. Go figure. But how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
Good. So I obviously didn't hear everything to the T, but was there something that I heard about? I guess eventually a part of your treasury going into other projects to where part of our rewards come from Polar and the other part comes from actual revenue stream.
Yes, so that's going to be the primary transition as we move forward, is we're using this treasury to build these additional revenue streams that we've been talking about for, like I said, talking for too long, but we need to actually put this money to use, and that's going to be the primary case use of the treasury itself.
Gotcha. So like is there any example, like if I buy more Polar of how that will, like, I guess the more Polar I have, the more that's where I'm kind of lost. Like, I guess when you go into revenue stream, is it just the more rewards I get from Polar, or is the percentages change per what rewards would be? Is that what's in the works per se?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I've a couple ways I can think about that there. So Polar as a token, we're not expected to change. I know people have been like saying, hey, we need to have a sales tax, whatever. That would require us to migrate to a new token. That is not the expectation of the Polar token. So if you were to buy Polar tokens from Trader Joe or whatever and just hold them, that would be the same. You're banking on the value of the token to go up in the future, right? So the actual NFTs, the nodes that are out there, the theory is that this revenue share model will be a distribution percentage based on the value of these NFTs. Obviously, Olympus being the highest, Fuji being the lowest, special NFTs into consideration as well. So in that theory of a revenue share system, it is almost, a proportional stock percentage, if you want to think of it in that regard, to where your revenue value kickback would be coming from.
Gotcha. So, the more you have invested in higher tiers and more, all right, I get it, than the higher percentage or whatever, however it's distributed. Okay. And, do you think at this point, adding I know when I talked to you about it last time, but it's helped a lot of protocols out, and I know you're for the people, but implementing it, and I'm not like the most, keen on it, but implementing a fee, because I know you would use it for good use to help increase the value of the protocol and the coin.
Yeah, so that has been a discussion. It's still one that I'm kind of on the fence about. I like the idea of finding a way to bring value to the token and value to the nodes that we have. But like I said, if we were to implement something like a maintenance fee, it would be it has to be very, very clear of where any of that money is going, like incredibly transparent. So that is something right. I'm going to let the core team decide upon. I'm not dug in either way. If they implement some aspect of it, I think there's ways that it could be beneficial. but there's pros and cons to both sides of that.
Okay. No, I know I brought it up before, and I was just like, man, I'm like, I think, some of them, have them, and some of them it's worthless. But based on, the past of Polar, and what it can do, it could definitely shine some light on some things. I mean, there's a lot of protocols right now that left and right are just disappearing. And unfortunately, the market going down the way it is, and I don't have any fear with you guys. I wrote a message and I'm like, hey, is there something wrong with Polar? No, just the market's down. We're working on it. That's a great response. Where other people are like, hey, sorry, we got hacked, and the protocol closes. So there's a lot of also fear in that index with like a lot of big protocols, and nodes being expired, and all different kinds of things going on that got people kind of like shooken up about investing in it. So I always tell people all the time, like, just, work with Polar or get with Polar, come up with ideas, like whatever it may be, because I know you guys are always trying to build around, what's going on, which is just a bloody market that's going to be going on for a while. So.
Yeah, that's definitely something that's fluid, and we do need to be cognizant of what's going on. But and I didn't mean to answer you so briefly. I cannot even display how many DMs I've gotten in the last 2 days, but it's a lot. So I just try to reassure people, but I cannot fully go into detail to everybody. Just simply time of day while I'm still trying to work all this out here. But hey, I appreciate you still being around, still being supportive. We talked the first time back in like February, I think. So shout out to you for still being here as a supporter.
All right, awesome. I will talk to everyone about it, let them know what's going on. And, I'm sure they'll be happy to hear some news, and I'm sure you'll be releasing more. So that'll be good.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Good to talk to you again.
All right, take care.
And as we can see, Salty has also joined the stage here. Again, if either of you do want to speak, hey, this is your guys' show. I'm just a mere employee, so do what you will. But if not, I will be bringing more people up, and we will continue to go through questions and answer all the questions here that are given in person as well as in the AMA questions channel itself. So next one here, Craig Joe, I'm going to bring you live. You should get a request. Oh, Salty may have unmuted, but if you do want to talk, you can. I'm sure Craig will be willing to wait a minute. Craig is not responding to the request anyway. Craig Joe going once. Craig Joe going twice. All right, okay, he's gone. All right. So were you just unmuting, Salty, or were you trying to say something there? All right, I'll take that as it is. Narek, my homie, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Oh, same old,
How are you
living
doing
the
today?
dream.
How's the team today? Yes, sir. You know it. I'm a huge supporter of the protocol, bro. I love the dev team. Great people. Always working towards making it right and providing that innovation at the same time. I have a huge community, with me that supports the protocol. Being a dev on my own team, I do know that sometimes you do have to make hard executive decisions for the health of the protocol, because without the protocol, there is no income. And I've kind of gathered a couple questions from the community, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, man. Go right ahead.
Okay, I know you touched a little bit about this, and I think people just want a little more clarity if you can provide it. I know we'll probably never get back to the 3 and 4% a day. So I guess managing expectations. What kind of ROI can the community expect to build towards? Maybe like a 1%, 1.5%. If you can share a little detail on that.
Yeah, so I'm not going to go into specifics with how Polar will transition because I'm not in charge or developing those, but I will kind of speak in generalities of business and kind of the economic, belief and expectation that you can have from a revenue share system. I've been a long time believer that about 0.5% a day is one of the cleanest, most sustainable, realistic numbers you could be looking at in crypto. That's still incredible. Like you're talking 15% a month that would be compounding if you were to do it a daily kind of thing. If you can average 0.5% a day, and I'm saying average over a substantial period of time, that is truly remarkable. And I would, without saying too much about Polar in particular, I think if I were to be implementing a revenue stream, that would be my goal, is to try to implement something along those lines. Maybe 10 to 20% a month, 15% a month, either compounding daily or however it is sought out to be. That I think is a more realistic approach. If it is more, that is fantastic, but there has to be a significant amount of money coming in for it to be back to like the 1.5-2% range in the long term. The short term, I think we could still deal with it, but I'm talking like if you're thinking 6 months, a year, multiple years, that would be my expectation just from general economic standpoint.
Right. I mean, that's a great assessment. And yeah, truly, if you even apply that 0.5% to real world like application and what people actually make in the real world, that's a blessing, right? Like people tend to make anywhere from 8 to 15% in the S&P 500s for the whole year. So I think that's still an amazing opportunity for people. Um, and I guess my last question would be for you is, what can the community do to actually assist, right? Like buy more, compound? Should we, get ready for the next projects? Because I do know the Polar Guardian will bring income into the whole ecosystem. Like as investors, how can we help?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's one that I think has evolved for me over the weeks here and over the months. So back, a month or two ago, compounding, that's a great way to do it. Last week I went into a pretty long spiel of like, hey, if you are already too invested, overly invested, which we've seen as I've been preaching since January, never borrow money to get into crypto, never put yourself on the streets if crypto were to fail, only invest the money that you can truly be okay if it totally went to zero and nothing and poof disappeared tomorrow. So that's kind of my first outlook. So if you need to take care of yourself and your family, that is priority, no matter what you do. From there, right now, I mean, I'm never going to sit here and say, don't sell, because I've been in a protocol that has done that before, and it was a very negative experience as it continued to drop. So I will never be one to push that theory. But in general, token price goes down when token sales go up. So if more people are selling than are buying, token price goes down. So if you were to think, hey, how can we increase token price? Because that is what many of the community care about. I'll kind of let you put 2 and 2 together in that regards there. But our node caps are coming up. So as people are creating nodes, they are going quicker and quicker. And then right now they are very cheap. So they are going quicker than even we may have expected on that front. So I think from now, just a general, the sentiment is pretty rough. The vibe is pretty rough in the community. Today, not so bad. Last 2 days more so. So I think that needs a change. And as we see here, we have Frey, Salty, and Enor up here on the stage. They're here, right? So that is a huge thing. We've seen other protocols that went under, and I like using Univ as an example because they're a very clear malicious intent kind of protocol. Their mods went, I think, a week or two totally unpaid because they had no contact with their developing team. So that's a problem, right? We're not in that position. We're still here working. There is negative conditions as far as token prices are concerned, but we are still building. So we do need to build the perception, or else nobody is going to continue to invest into us in the future. So as we change that mindset, as we realize, hey, it sucks that we are where we are, but now we need to look forward tomorrow and look towards the future instead of yesterday and the day before, that is when we can truly change the vibe back to a positive and get us back to where we need as Polar and as a community in of itself.
Great answer, brother. I really appreciate you, man. You guys being here shows a lot. To the whole team, Frey, Enor, Salty, you guys are awesome. Keep at it. A lot of us are back here supporting you guys to the fullest extent. I truly believe in you guys, and I'll be here. I'll be here to the end. I don't think there will be an end. That's the thing.
Heck yeah. Hey, I appreciate you jumping up here, man, and good to talk to you again. And I'll be talking to you again in the nearest of futures.
Absolutely. You guys have a blessed day.
I appreciate you, man. So just as a customary shout out, obviously this is your guys' project. So if any of the other three on the stage with me are willing to speak, just unmute and go right ahead. I'm not obviously too worried about any of that, but I do just see you here as a presence for the community, which is a good thing for them as I continue to bring other people up to speak. So Rocket, I know you've been up here before. I'm going to bring you up here again, but I'm going to go through some of the people who have not yet talked just to give it a fair opportunity. So Hannibal OC, once again, weekly AMA, you are now live.
Thank you, sir. I've been tuning in every week. I think I'm just going to echo a lot of what's been said, which is what was done had to be done. I've been on the receiving end when rewards have been cut. But I mean, essentially what you guys did was call it, if we're going to use a basketball game as an analogy, you guys just called a timeout, right? When the other team's scoring and steam has been lost and everything, at some point you have to halt what's going on, and that's what you guys did. And that was my feeling when it happened. It was more just a case of, yeah, it's better that you do that than nothing at all. So I don't know from a community standpoint if there was a win where you were going to please the majority of the people, but I think that was just something that just had to happen. So in terms of a question, in the project ideas, I see tons of fantastic things that could be implemented. And one thing that's a passion for me is poker. And I know that I thought I saw in the messages before that we were a GameFi or something along those lines. So is poker something that we could implement? Because I mean, if we lean on that a lot more heavier than say Thor or Power have been, that in itself can be a pretty decent revenue stream. Because those apps just run solely playing poker. So to me, that could be an avenue that I think we could, generate some revenue from.
Yeah, man. So I totally agree there. So if you haven't listened to our ChainBet AMA from a few weeks back, I'd highly recommend listening to that there. That's one that we invested in their pre-sale on over at ChainBet. And they have a great system that allows us to utilize a Polar token for, in the short term, some table games, and in the long term, ultimately a sports betting platform, which would be fantastic because that has 2 for 2 in things that I have a high interest in. But it also allows protocols to use a portion of their treasury to continue that gaming and that gambling aspect, which will help generate revenue for the treasury itself, let alone just you going out there with your personal tokens working through it from there. So that's something that we do expect to get implemented as ChainBet is going further and further and will ultimately be live as soon as they possibly can.
Fantastic. I didn't even know that. So that's actually really, really good to hear. So again, appreciate you. I know you guys could have lost your cool many a time. So appreciate you, appreciate the community. Everybody's keeping that cool. And you guys are fantastic, man. So I do not lose sleep with you guys at the helm. So much appreciated.
Hey, shout out to you, man. And shout out to the gal. My girlfriend found my first white hair at 29 years old. So crypto is a stressful land, but we will be working through it. So, hey, I appreciate you, man.
Indeed. Thank you.
I don't know if you have it. I didn't want to cut you off there. Sorry about that.
No, I said thanks. No, appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you.
All right.
All right, Rocket, I know you've been up here for a minute. I'm going to bring you back up. Then Muggles, don't leave me. I'll get you here in just a minute. What's going on again, Rocket?
Hey, jumping back up real quick, just to add one thought on somebody made a comment about the fees. And I guess just to add my perspective, I've been in 2 other projects now that had gone through a transition phase, and both of them decided to enact fees or higher fees. One of them, it was like an Armageddon, unfortunately, especially the way they handled it. So I think the big lesson there is just, when something's going to change, especially that dramatically, handling it is really, really important. But also they really didn't take into account their price action and where it was going. They assumed that the price would just go up because they would use these fees for buybacks, and it has gone the opposite direction. So now the invested community is like even more mad and bailing out. So it's definitely a very, very tricky thing to manage. Another one, they were very, very clear about what the fees are going to be used for. And I think that was received a lot better. They also weren't, they were they were a lot clearer about how they're rolling them out and kind of ramping them up, and they're a lot more cognizant and can dial them based on token price and all the rest. Still kind of a sensitive topic because people are looking at looking at it going, hey, I'm going to be net zero for the month because my rewards were just completely eaten by the fees. I think that's a very, very sensitive topic for a lot of folks, especially in a down market. So my encouragement there would just be to really carefully consider, like you said already, being sure of exactly where that's going, but also if you have to do that, which I'm not really a fan, but if you have to do that, make sure it's handled correctly, communicated up front, and think about the long term and think about the what ifs, because it doesn't always go how you hope it goes.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and those are the things that we consider every day. I know exactly what protocol that you're talking about, and I have a genuine respect for at least one person who works for them, so I don't want to talk too negatively towards them. But one of the big issues with that particular protocol, like you mentioned, is you don't know where that money's going. And that's a problem. That's a problem in the space where it could be going to good things, but we don't know, right? So if there were to be any sort of a maintenance fee implemented, like I mentioned earlier, it has to be so clear that like someone brand new into DeFi can track where it's going at any point in time, or else it's total chaos. I don't see any real practical use for it unless you can truly say this is where it's going and this is why it helps us. And even then, I'm not the biggest proponent of it, but I do find it to be, it could have a place in the space if done correctly. So it's very fragile. It's probably just as fragile as what happened yesterday, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely the transparency, and then the option to, change it if it's not actually working, right? You have a theory, you implement it and it goes wrong. Well, just give yourself, a way to back out of it so you don't, continue down a path that's not helping. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Muggles, I'll bring you up here now. What's going on?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you great, man. How you doing?
All right, great, thanks. Yeah, I was gonna actually a couple of points. I was gonna say about the maintenance fees. Terrible idea on my end, I think. Only because you don't want to nickel and dime the community. The price is 14 cents. If you do maintenance fees, I don't think the price is gonna jump. So nickel and diming the guys is probably not a good idea. I'd rather just keep lowering the rewards, So, and I wanted to ask the guys, since they're up here, or Frey. I was in the Discord yesterday, and when they implemented what they implemented, and there's a lot of people upset. I wasn't upset about losing my rewards that much because it had to be done eventually. I don't know how we lasted at 3.3% for so long. I mean, that was a gift. So I understand that had to happen. I think just a lot of people were upset at how it happened so quickly with no word, like kind of like in the middle of the night, like what the Baltimore Colts did in the 70s or 80s, whatever it was, when they changed locations and they had the trucks moving. So I think a lot of people are upset that it happened just so quickly. So if the guys could talk about either freight, or why that kind of happened, and the real question is the revenue stream. How quickly can you implement some new revenue stream into Polar? Is it going to be a week, 2 weeks, 3 months, 5 months? Could any of the guys talk about that?
So I did go over a significant portion of that first part earlier today. So to answer that question, the rewards pool went to zero, went from 191,000 Polar to zero Polar in less than 1 day. And we kind of were working on some of the implements that were enacted yesterday to happen shortly thereafter, but the rewards pool went to zero again. So the only options that were to be available to us was say we let it be zero and we say, hey, you guys have 48 hours to claim. But by the way, there's no tokens in the rewards pool, so I guess good luck. Or you could say, hey, we're going to continue to mint Polar for the next 48 hours, so you guys can claim all of your Polar again as we mint another 500,000 to 750,000 Polar. Or the core team does what it did. It reduces the rewards. It mints 200,000 Polar as a stopgap effect for the ultimate sell-off that was going to occur after it was implemented. And then we move forward and sustain the protocol in the long term. And that was the option that was chosen. and that is the one that I'm going to back personally. I know ethically there's questions on how it was implemented. I don't think there was a choice. Business is business. They had to make a decision in the real world time, and they made a decision that's going to benefit Polar for the longest period of time, in my total observation from that.
No, you had to do it, but the way they did it upset some people. It didn't upset me, but I know I was in the Discord yesterday where there was a lot of people upset. But can any of the guys talk about how long the new revenue stream is gonna be implemented, put into effect, like when new money could actually come in? Because starting the ventures, it's not just like you start something and then the money comes in right away. I think it's gonna take some time to get in, the new money to Polar. Can any of the guys give a time frame?
Yeah, so I know we have some of the core team up here. I don't know if they're going to talk or they're just showing a presence. I know Enor is English is not a priority or primary language of his, so I don't. He's never talked on the AMAs before. If he does want to, then great. But in my communication with him, what I can relay is that there has been things in recent developments that are going to allow it to be quicker than previously expected. So that is the latest of that information. I cannot say a timeline because I don't have a timeline, and they can't even promise a timeline yet, because if we say 2 weeks and it takes 2 weeks and 1 day, boom, let the FUD machine go again, open the floodgates, and here we are in 2 weeks from now with me getting more white hairs because I'm having to calm down a whole community. So what I'd advise is let them work. The progress is real at this point, and the progress is tangible in the sense that the vision is starting to come together in a more complete way than it was maybe previously. So I know we are in a hard position, but we can't rush things and lessen the quality of the approach. So this is what they need to work on their end. Like I said, that's kind of how business is, where it might not be necessarily ideal in the short term, but for the long term, this is the better way to approach it. And as Enor mentioned in his announcement, just because a hard cap was implemented does not mean our nodes are worthless. On the contrary, it allows us to transition to them to be, in my opinion, more heavily worth. It gives them more of a worth because now they are a genuine and sustainable thing rather than just being these kind of high ROI node protocols that ultimately burn out over time.
Yeah, and I think that the Polar team has spoiled this community with this, 3.3 and higher with the Olympus. So we were definitely spoiled, and now we're feeling a little bit of the realistic situation. So I agree with that 100%. And that's about it. Thanks, Shib.
Hey, I appreciate you. I know I kind of didn't answer things, super specifically, but I definitely appreciate you there. And as soon as information is allowed to be released, I'm going to be out here screaming it from the rooftops because good news is better than what we've been dealing with. So stick with us and we'll be there.
Just one more thing, Shib. Sorry. When the nodes are capped, you could still buy the Polar token, right? Like if I could buy the Polar token at 14 cents and then sell it at $1.50, right? You could still do that, right? After the nodes are capped.
Of course, yep. The token is not going to change as far as right now is concerned. There's no theory of creating like a V2 of the Polar token. So the token will still be available. It would just be the nodes themselves that would be capped.
All right. Thank you.
I appreciate you, man. All right, next one here. GrapeMeta.crypto. I think I just shouted out your website. But if I didn't, shout out to you. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's going good. Thanks for having me up. I think this is the first time I've spoken to you, actually, Shebir. Great job, by the way, in moderating the community. I'm not someone who kind of come in on a daily basis to see what's going on. I kind of check in every 2 weeks or monthly. Um, my main concern or question that I have is, and I don't know if you're able to answer this, is I notice a lot of the protocols of different node projects. They're not hitting the exchanges. Is there a reason why that these node projects are not hitting exchanges that have high volume or liquidity in there? I noticed that they're going about they're on maybe Gate.io or these other smaller Trader Joe, smaller different volume exchanges. And I know a lot of these exchanges because I've been in various projects in the past. they require a lot of KYC from the actual developers. And I know sometimes the developers, excuse me, don't want to maybe reveal certain information, but is that something that's in the works? For instance, going on to KuCoin, going into Wabe Global, I've seen the application for those. Those are 20 to 30 page applications. So I just wanted to know, or if you can help answer, is that somewhere in the future going onto some of these exchanges to help bring, help with the price action?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there's, as you kind of look into the different exchanges out there, the decentralized exchanges and the centralized exchanges like KuCoin and Coinbase and all that stuff, they do require different levels of requirements for each of them. And KuCoin's relatively lower to get into, requires certain volume, other listings on exchanges, stuff like that, all the way up to some of the bigger ones that require much more information. What I can say is our token itself meets the requirements for many of these exchanges. The volume has been low lately, and that doesn't help. It does need to have better volume for some of them out there. And as far as the KYC legality aspects, I think we're going to have some positive news as we go forward on that in the future. As Ynor has mentioned, he's looking to bring Polar to become like a more legitimized business into the future, which will require different things to happen on their end, which is a good thing. So as some of that gets navigated out, that'll open up the not only the ability but the demand for us to have these centralized exchange listings. You got to keep in mind we also need different versions of liquidity pools at that point. And right now the token itself is pretty low, so liquidity pool is also relatively small compared to what it has been in the past. So things like that do need to be accounted for. There are many variables, but I do think there'll be positive news on that as we kind of navigate through some of the times that we're currently in.
Okay. All right. Thank you for answering my question. Yes, I just my 2 cents right there. I think going into exchanges would definitely help with investors' confidence level, despite the bear market. I know a lot of folks say, the cliche phrase, "Don't invest in what you can't risk," but I believe there's different types of risks. And right now, lots of the NFT, Web3, crypto community is going through a lot of security and fraud risk. They're afraid, of where their money is going into. And it's not about what we can afford to risk per se. I can afford to risk these losses. A lot of people probably can as well, but we don't want to go into a project not knowing where the future lies. And that's just my aspect and my 2 cents of it.
Yeah, man, that's a great point. I do totally agree with you there. Is we've seen other, smaller tokens once they get listed on a major exchange. Obviously, there is a big pump in that price because of multiple reasons, including people who just want to flip the momentum. So, but it gives it more mainstream vibes, and I think it's a positive for the token itself.
Exactly. Right on, man. I appreciate you taking my question. Thank you very much.
Hey, I appreciate you, man.
So,
All right.
What's going on, Frey? You're unmuted. I don't know if you meant to be or not.
speak first. But, yeah, I talked with Noah a bit, and sorry for the accent and everything. I'm not a native speaker, but never mind. As long as you understand, it's fine. But we want to
You're kind of
give
breaking up a little bit, Frey.
message like break up. Yeah.
Like if your phone's
So
choppy.
the idea, yeah, the idea is we want to give a message as part of the core team and everything. We are fully aware that right now the Polar Protocol entirely, like the ecosystem itself, is based on congenomics, and we never hide it or anything. And the main purpose, like main goal of the core team, whether we are talking about Enor, Salty, Yan, whoever, is to live out this pandemic. And that's why Enor is like working hard on the plate world. Like he's spending his entire days doing it. And on our side, we are developing utilities for the protocol itself because at some point we want to leave this pandemics, and that's where we are trying to go. That's where we are heading, and that's the main goal of the coaching at the moment, because what we have right now is not sustainable, and we want our investor happy with everything, and we are doing our best. And but it takes time, like for the play tour, there is time to develop it, there is time to make it real, and we are on it, but it takes time. Don't know if that's very super clear, but I tried my best. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. It was kind of breaking up there, but I was able to hear you good enough. So I'll just kind of reiterate what you were saying. And what Frey was getting at there was that these node protocols, they all start out on that same Ponzi economic theory where there's a requirement for people to purchase nodes in order to still pay out nodes in the future. And as the demand decreased quicker than expected, the transition to the revenue share model that we are working on, that has been the goal for us to get off of, is it takes time to get these things implemented. It takes time, money, and effort. And that is what the core team has been working to develop there. So Frey was just giving a little bit of reassurance that, hey, this was how it is structured. This is still how it's structured. And we need to be able to move forward. And it does take time to get to that next phase. Did I kind of summarize you right? The phone was breaking up a little bit, Frey.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, so I'm trying my best, but you know what it's like to speak in a different language.
Yeah, I
But
got you. You should hear me try to
that's
speak Spanish. It doesn't work super well. So.
I way prefer speaking Spanish than English, trust me. But it's okay. But yeah, we'll do our best, and we'll keep working hard, and each one of the core team member will keep building his own things to make Polar, to give it a utility, like to make it real, to make it sustainable. Maybe on salty side is building a lot of strategy with the Polar Venture. On Melon side is building the play tour. Jan is handling the entire matching side of all those protocols together, and on my side, I'm developing UTGs for the Polar token itself. So like we are trying out different aspects of it, and we are trying to implement it all out to make it work, to make it sustainable. Like that's really our main goal.
Yeah, that's a great contribution there. And for anyone who just couldn't hear, because it was breaking out pretty well, basically we got to move off the Ponzi economic theory to become a real business, and that's what the core team is working on. So bear with us. None of us quit on you. The core team is still working day and night to get this going. We're still here with the community, building up forward. Price is down, but the future is still bright. And with that, hey, thank you for that's a good contribution here. I think the people just want to, hear some sort of reassurance, so it's a benefit to have you guys up here, at least even just in presence. Captain Gibby, bringing you up here whenever you accept. You will be live. How's it going?
How's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Is there an echo or anything? I'm talking to you through my Bluetooth car stereo.
No, I think it's good enough for us.
Okay. Well, a couple things. First off, I want to commend you for how you handle these things in a very professional manner. I've been a part of some other stuff, and quite frankly, people sometimes running AMAs just sound like someone I wouldn't let manage $5. I'm aware you're not managing any of the funds or anything, but I think the way you carry yourself and everything is very professional and instills, confidence. It's a good face for the community. So that's not a paid endorsement or anything like that, unless there's any sort of way to get an Olympus node. But hey, but no, I'm kidding. The first thing I wanted to ask was with the rewards reduction, and my forgiveness if this was popped up in the general chat and stuff like that, and I missed it. Tried looking through the announcements and didn't see it. I bought 3 Everest out of the lucky boxes because I'm a gambler and stuff like that, and I got 2 diamonds. Now, the Everest that goes down to 20%, did all of them go down to 20%? I'm sorry, 20 rewards.
Yeah, I know what you're saying there. So I know they were all adjusted. Let's see if I can do some live action. More than likely on the DApp, it has their exact totals. To be fair, I haven't looked at all these special ones yet as far as the DApp is concerned. The information that I put out is the information that was brought back to me. So I think that I know they've all been declined. I don't think they're all at the base. I think they're all declined by a percentage, which will be more fair to each of them.
And then when we do eventually move to a revenue sharing model, will the marketplace still remain open to like buy and sell your nodes, or to buy and sell nodes?
Yeah, so that's a thing.
Or NFT.
Yeah, I got you. So that's a theory currently, like especially the special ones. They're already available. They're already able to have it done. So why not? The good thing with our own marketplace is that the core team can set things like a floor price. So in the event that they were to ever want to offer the ability to sell the NFTs, even the base ones, they could put a floor price in the system there so that you wouldn't be able to sell it for 1 polar. You'd have to sell it for a fair market price, for example. Not saying that is in the plans. It just gives them a ton of things to work with and work for, which is pretty cool. I mean, it allows them to have more opportunity in the future than if they just sucked it into, an open marketplace kind of system like we've seen with others that kind of failed with it. But the special NFTs are still able to be sold, and that's still the trend and the idea of them moving forward.
Yeah, well, me personally, and I know my one voice has so much weight. I say that sarcastically. Not saying it doesn't, but I think that's a killer thing to have as far as the NFT marketplace on the DApp and not going out of house, because then and it's still being available once it goes to revenue share, because then it does kind of make it like a public business model to where it's like those are your shares that you have within the business, and if you just want out, you can sell them, and then the next person that buys them, and it provides utility for the token, there could be a fee, obviously, like a polar to sell it or whatever it might be. And then the next person that says, well, man, I wish I would have gotten that protocol and got a hold of that revenue sharing, well, then there's their opportunity. And then they could have a fee that injects more money into to where that's another utility for the token and the nodes that could generate income. I mean, not huge income, but just, every little bit helps, right?
Yeah, hey, I think that's a good theory there. And it does give like that same, sort of OpenSea, looks rare, etc. vibe, where there is a benefit to having an NFT marketplace. And if it's our own, and they've already built it, they've already put the money and effort and the design into it, that if they were to want to expand it, I think they could. And I don't think it'd be a negative, because it's still not undercutting the value of the NFTs, because you can't buy them on the open market anymore, right? So that's another way to do it. And as you mentioned, it might be a little bit more legally sound for the revenue share system. So I do agree with that.
Yeah, and it kind of, with that being on the DApp, it's a lot more exclusivity. It's just like, everyone wants something they can't have. They're willing to pay for it, right? Supply and demand. And so if there's just like OpenSea and all those others take a percentage cut, that's how they stay in business. There could be a percentage cut on this, as far as that goes. Other than that, I don't really have anything else. It was just those 2 things. And I say, what Frey was trying to echo and everything, I know it's not first language and stuff like that, is I think this industry gets too much like, there's Ponzi-nomics, and then there's, everyone's got a family member that says, hey, buy this thing, but you get it cheaper if you become a member underneath me. It turns into a pyramid kind of mentality. Not that Ponzinomics is that, but they want that return now, and they want this stuff now. Like, how come we haven't built this now? And really, that everyone just got to kind of get off of that and accept the fact that, like, sometimes they can't spend 5 hours in Discord because that's 5 hours less spent on developing, these other aspects that are going to bring in the revenue. Because if they're spending all of their time in Discord talking and those things don't get done that need to be done, eventually the money runs out. And so they need to get those things done as fast as they possibly can, obviously, but the things take time. And so if we rob their time from them by demanding for them to be in Discord and for them to be, just completely involved, well, that's why you guys are there. If Frey and Enor and all those were in there speaking all the time, then why would your position exist? And so hopefully some people that don't understand that hear that, and that made some sense to them. But in order for this thing to actually work and to move forward, patience. So, yeah, that's all.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming up here, and a lot of good input there, and I do agree. So great input, great thing for the community to hear, and thank you for the shout outs at the beginning and the continuous support to the team as we work to support you again for supporting on us.
No problem. Thank you.
Sweet. So next one here, Royd ZX. Before I do this, I might jinx myself. Oh wait, maybe you're one. I was gonna say there is a lot of legitimate FUD going on in the chats the last couple days, and I said, please come talk to me on the AMA. But maybe you are one, Royd. I don't think you are, but if you are welcome. Anyone else who has issues with us, I mean, like I said, I'm here to chill. I'm here to vibe. I'm not an angry person. Come up and talk to us, and we'll be able to have a good conversation. But in the meantime, what's going on, Royd?
Hey, man. I guess two ideas I had, and they're ideas that have been posted in the general chat a couple times as well already. I'm sure you're already aware, but just wanted to echo, would there be an option to be able to implement, a slotting tax to help with sustainability and reduce the amount of selling going on? Because I think that would allow for a lot more positive price action and would reduce emissions because people wouldn't be selling as often, prevent the constant dumping. The other thing I was thinking about too was we have that marketplace, right, where people are consistently selling, lucky box nodes that have a higher return, and to further reduce those emissions, I feel like something else that we could be doing is the core team could be purchasing those nodes off of the marketplace and, for a lack of a better word, decommissioning those nodes, right? Or utilizing the rewards from those nodes to refill the liquidity pools, or just deactivating them in general to further reduce the emissions and just assist in that sustainability effort and help push us through to the when the market hopefully gets to some better days. So just those are my 2 points. I don't know if those are things that have been discussed already or are in talks of being implemented or not. But just wanted to offer my 2 cents.
Yeah, hey man, that's some great inputs there. And there's been those and similar to those, I guess, in general that have been put out in like protocol ideas and also in the different chats. So we do read through all those channels. So please keep giving us ideas. I know I talked to Jesse earlier on. We do legitimately read these. We take them into consideration. We see how they've been implemented in other places and how we might be able to implement them even better. So shout us out on those protocol ideas channel, and let us work with you from there, because we do appreciate the input. And I think those are some good theories that are at least some aspect of implementation could be effective for us.
Yep. Thank you. That's all I had to say.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Bring it back down to the audience. Next one here. Lots of speakers today. Good little audience. So shout out to you guys. And you are live, Mar. I don't know how to pronounce your name, so I do apologize if I mispronounced it. But welcome.
It's it's all good, boss. Thank you guys for having me. You say it, my guy, so that's how you say it. But it's okay. I appreciate you for trying. First, I just want to say that I appreciate you and the team really working tirelessly. I mean, I know that I've seen some of you guys say you work longer than 24 hours, 48 hours, and just don't want that to go unnoticed. I'm very grateful for the amount of work you guys put in. I've been in Polar, for a little over a couple months now, and me personally, I can say that this is the best project I've been involved in. Um, and so I personally don't have any type of negative feedback, but there are individuals who might post things in the chat and or people that for instance, I have a buddy of mine who has like 20 to 25 different people he's gotten invested in the Polar. And so over the course of you guys starting, and so and vice versa, I've gotten a few people as well. But so these questions that I'm voicing is just not necessarily people being negative, but they just want to know, what direction we're going in. And I know you guys started a little earlier. I tried to listen to the beginning. I just missed a little bit. But one question that I had was that essentially, you know, some investors that I know and just reading through the chat have voiced I'm just going to generalize that they feel like 10 steps forward, 30 steps back. And so essentially, they kind of want to know, like, with what took place yesterday, it had to happen. It completely had to happen. But with what took place yesterday, and with them not being able to compound, and obviously the nodes are hard capped, and we're getting closer to those deadlines. Um, some of those people are panicking because they feel like they would like to reach their ROI or be able to compound a node or two before these are hard capped. And with the reductions that have taken place over the last 2 weeks, it's kind of pushed them back 2 weeks. And so if there being about 3,000, a little over 3,000 nodes left, 37, I think, they just kind of want to know, is there going to be some sort of incentive, or is it just going to be like, hey guys, we cut the rewards. This is what it had to be. You're just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and the answer to that is, um, I'll be very very straightforward here, so people don't say like I'm politicking through this one, because as you've heard me speak, I can, I guess, if I needed to, but the options are to let the protocol die literally by the crazy rush of emissions, or to make the changes that were made yesterday. So the incentive and the benefit to the community is that the focus is on the long-term aspect of the protocol. As I've mentioned for months, we're not here for a week, a month, 2 months. We are trying to think as far down the road as possible, years, etc. So if your ROI did increase by months and months, well, quite frankly, if the protocol dies this week, that's irrelevant. And I'll be very, very blunt with that one, right? Then all of us lose, including the core team. But if it survives for years at a reduced return rate, that's better, right? So that's kind of the trade-off that was a decision that had to be made yesterday, and I think it was a good one. I don't think it was a great feeling for the community, but I do think in the long run, as people settle down over the last 24 hours or so, and as we transition to these future phases, it's going to be one that we are going to look back and at least be able to appreciate that we were able to get through this and then transition into what will be our next phase of Polar.
Yes. Okay. And that's kind of, what I wanted to relay to them. And, I just didn't want to misinform people. And so that was the whole reason of me joining today, because, I this is my first AMA I've been a part of, but I always, watch the discords, and I listen to not listen, but I, read the comments, and then I also have people, like I said, who are involved. And so I just wanted to be transparent with them, because me personally, and I'm able to invest and take risks. And someone stated earlier, everyone's different, and that's true. And so, I just wanted to ask a question that smaller investors might have been too afraid to ask, and so you've answered it perfect. And I also stated to them as well that this was inevitable. I mean, it sucks. It genuinely sucks. It genuinely sucks. I mean, I was blindsided as well as a lot of other people. But, like you stated, over the last 24, 48 hours, it'll start to calm down. People will be more understanding of the direction the protocol is going in. And quite frankly, you just kind of have to essentially deal with it and move on and think long term. And so I think that's great how you put it. It's not a short term type of thing, it's long term. But in a sense, I just wanted to be able to give some type of feedback.
Yeah. Hey, man, that was a great question. That was one. I mean, like I said, those are the hard questions that I want to be asked up here. So I do appreciate you coming up and asking that question. And for those who are currently in the Discord AMA and that are not either able or wanting to jump up and ask, shout out to you for being able to voice that question to them. And I hope, I think I sounded sincere, but that's truly sincerely what it was. It's either, like we make it work or we don't. And this was the way to make it work.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I appreciate you guys for everything. Keep on putting in the hard work. And as an investor, I'm more of a positive investor, and so I love the community. I love the brainstorming. I love the feedback. A lot of other projects aren't open-minded like that. And so I think it really allows for those who don't really know much to ask questions. And there are a lot of helpful people within the chat that'll answer those questions. And so, I think you iterated earlier today that, the biggest thing that we can do is be positive and try and convince those who are on the fence that, look, we're in this for the long term. It's going to be something that would be beneficial, but right now we are in a bloody period, and so we just have to get through this as a family and be positive. And so I appreciate you guys for kind of being up to speed with everything and just putting in the work you are up to this point.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Great question.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to move you back to the audience. So, Sam, man, I'm going to shout you out on the chat real quick, but I'm going to answer your question now that we've gone through a lot of those. So your question was in reference to the version 3.1 release. So from there, the shout out to Frey. I mean, back end, the code Solidity side, that's good. The implementation with the front end still needs some work. So Salty did post a photo in the chat yesterday morning, US time, that would give at least a visual update of where the front end is, which means it's getting there, right? So I'm not going to say it's done or it's super close because I don't know, but I do know that the Solidity side of it's good. The front end is in progress. And once that is done and the connection of the two will run, then I'm sure that there will be some sort of a test aspect to it, whether that's an open beta or a private beta. That'll be up to the community itself. And shout out to Frey for giving me a live update that the final revision for the front end side is just entered the final revision state today. So, you guys are going to get mad at me for saying the S word, but it should be soon, hopefully. They're making real progress on it. Good things are going to come from it. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a save all, that the world will be back to normal, but it is a positive trend. It's something that we're able to put out there and give you guys to actually engage with the protocol more again. So shout out to the guys working on that. We're going to keep working through our end here. Appreciate all that hard work on them and the everlasting effects of the community to help us kind of get this going on our end as well. Yeah, shout out to you, Stacks. Soon. I'm going to keep saying that word because you guys hate it so much. Chris Wolfpup, shout out to you, man. I'm bringing you up here live.
Hey, I know it's been a while since I've been on. I've been just focusing on other projects. And do want to apologize once again for everything we went through earlier.
Hey, no hard feelings. I don't hold grudges. Shout out to you and hope you're doing well.
Thanks. I do have two things. First, one, I have been getting a lot of reports with mods getting really aggressive. I don't know if that's something you could look at so we don't scare people away from the community. But two, the big one is I after a lot of things that happened this week, not around Polar, but I just feel like the SEC is going to start cracking down on things. whether it be lotteries throughout protocols or not being registered SEC. And I feel like they're going to start cracking down a lot. Do you have a plan in action if they start?
Yeah, so that is a fantastic question. And if I may just go on a very quick tangent, people are so afraid of regulation. Regulation is what will implement us into the real world. So do not be afraid of regulation. If there's an announcement of real regulation, there is going to be a dip in the market, and the old shib bear is going to be buying up because this is the way for companies to actually be involved in crypto. So just that's my little tidbit on regulation. Secondarily, Enor is actively already looking to legitimize Polar as a business. He's talked about it multiple times. He already has lawyers that are on staff currently that are helping it all be totally compliant. I know SEC is what we know of in the United States, but there are other national and international corporations that do need to take into account the way that things are done. So I would see trends in the positive direction on that, including legal counsel with the implementation of the new things that are being developed here.
Okay, that's just something I was really worried about, and actually kind of made me change focus on a few things I'm working on too. So, and plus, I don't know if you saw that actually is what happened, why another project shut down. So I'm glad there's a plan in place.
Yeah, so Enor is leading the charge on that one. I will advise that other projects. So founding a project is difficult and it's stressful and it takes a ton of time to get these things right. We might also see some other projects take the idea of regulation as their version of an exit liquidity. So keep that in mind as well. It's not super hard to be compliant with these regulations. It really isn't. It's sometimes just as easy as putting a disclosure page out there saying that this is what it is. There's a high risk. If you have a problem, do this. Things just that easy. So it's not super hard to be compliant with these. You might have to be doxxed on some level, but not necessarily fully publicly. There's ways around that in business as well. So people are going to use that as a way out. I've been involved in business in the real world. So do not fear it. Regulation is a positive, and I look forward to what will be coming from that future regulation in cryptocurrency, even though it's a little different than what we see now.
Okay, and would you be able to just touch base on, because I had 4 different people message me saying they got banned or kicked out just for asking a question.
Yeah, so the only people that have been banned lately, it's not a question. And it is clear malicious FUD, and some of it's pretty bad, man. So we're not in the habit of banning people. The first thing is we'll give them a verbal warning, like, hey man, chill. Then we'll give them a 24-hour timeout. Then we'll give them a week timeout, and then we'll ban them. So there is 4 steps that you have to do to get banned from Polar, and all the mods are on the same page. Some might be a little bit more strict than others, but when you come in and saying, oh, here's another rug pull, oh, Polar's going to 0, glad I ROI'd, that's it. That's unproductive. That is literally FUD by definition. So, that is what it is. If they want to reach out to me, I'll review their case directly and look over the time of the ban and some of the actions that maybe have been implemented, because we have banned people in the past and then reinstated them after they chilled out. So, it's not a forever thing. Reach out to me and we'll talk. But if one of the mods banned you for a good reason, it's probably going to be their decision as far as how I'm running this. So,
okay, I'll let them know. Thank you.
Hey, shout out to you, man. Appreciate it. Sweet. So we are now 1 hour and 43 minutes. And I'm going to try to get through some of the AMA questions channeled to answer anything that I have not answered already. You guys are killing it. So shout out to you guys. Let's see here. Some of these, honestly, they're not super specific questions. So I will answer them as best that I can or go through. So if I do ignore your question, I do apologize. I've either answered it already in the AMA or they're not very specific. So I will go forward from there. So Mike Santos, they'd like to hear about concrete developments. I've mentioned that earlier. I cannot give a hard date because if I'm wrong in that hard date, then it'll open up the tidal wave of FUD back into the atmosphere. So the team is working. We will give updates as applicable. There has been a question about Polar Guardian in spring. Salty has mentioned that he has at least had some sort of an advisory role. He mentioned that on Twitter, and they will be under the Polar Guardian wing. So that's all I know about them. I'm not super engaged in Spring. I'm not in their Discord or anything, but you can do your own research on those ends. That's up to them, but they will be a Polar Guardian aspect from there. Next one here, I've answered the revenue streams. So I'll answer you anyway. Hoodie does. How does Polar make new revenue? I feel it's a bit hard to find on the docs. So as of right now, it's a phrase I was going into before, is it falls on that Ponzi economic theory, that supply, demand, direct economic theory, which requires there to be new nodes created in order to pay out to the nodes that have been implemented in the past. The transition off of that is the revenue stream model that I did mention earlier, the AMA here, but more or less it'll be transitioning from that direct Ponzi economic theory, that direct supply-demand variable theory, and then transitioning into a true, tried and true business model as we move forward over time. So that'll be the steps to there. DeFi. This is kind of a long one, so I do need to filibuster while I read through your question, but more or less is, why are there so many promises without delivery? I agree. How many times have I sat up here and said we need to do better because we do need to do better? The core team knows that. The community knows that. I know that. So these need these need to be addressed with results and not with promises. The only issue to that is people say when timeline, when this, when that, but then we answer it and you say, you have now given us a bad timeline. So what am I supposed to do with that? And it's impossible for me to answer that at that point. So let the results drive themselves. If you do not want to believe the results or believe the words, then wait for the results is my best advice for you. The immediate steps for that dire situation that you mentioned in your own words there was what we implemented yesterday to give us time to create the additional revenue streams. Question 2, what is a medium-term 3-month plan? And what is the long-term plan? That's what I mentioned earlier. Does anyone else not be able to hear me, or is it just one in the Discord? Let's see. Can't hear you, bro, from Babushka. Let's see if anybody else can hear me because I'm going on a tangent. Okay, everyone else can hear me. So I will continue that tangent. So the long term and midterm I've already answered. So shout out to that there. The revenue stream model will be very important to the long-term implementation of the protocol. If we allowed it to run down the previous train, we were on a track to death, and that is not the result that any of us would be interested in having. So that is going to be the future of what we have going on here. I've seen many people say like a pause in the protocol. I don't love that idea. But hey, when I used to train for competition martial arts, I would fast 1 day a week. Every Friday was my fast day. I'd only have black coffee during the day. Hey, I'm not saying that's something we should implement at fast of the nodes that we have here, but whatever. I'll let the core team figure out all that stuff. It was pretty good for me, but I'm not going to say it's a good idea for the protocol. But that is not my call to have. Hear my dog barking in the background. When Polar Martial Arts Tournament, don't get me in a competitive mood because I'm one of those free competitive people that if I start doing that, it gets out of hand and my girlfriend will get freaking exhausted. I'll come home with fractured ankles and stuff. So let's not do that anytime soon. I'm getting too old for that game. But if you guys want to participate, I'll bet on it. So that's good enough for me. Will there be an increased extension in the amount of nodes? That is nothing that has been signed up or that has been implemented or referred to by the core team. So right now the hard caps are what the hard caps are. And if that does change, there will be an announcement, but there has not been a direct discussion involving me in reference to hard caps changing. There's another question on hard caps. What are the steps taken for the long term? Answered that. Sliding tax system, monthly maintenance fees, etc. I've talked about some of those in the past. Sliding tax tiered system is good for a short-term boost, generally the same difference of over any 30-day period. The argument against that is those who are just going to sell daily anyway are going to take that higher tax rate and it's going to re-benefit the protocol. That is a very valid thing to consider. And I'll let the core team kind of work on that end. They do know the pros and cons of a system like that. Every time we do a change right now, there's going to be an uproar. So keep that in mind. PR side, that gets a little bit fragile as we move forward from there. Let's see. Swai Fly, how do we get back to our old ways of sustained success overtaking the market trends? I think that is going to be transitioning to something new as far as our revenue share system goes, where your nodes, your NFTs still have value as far as a daily yield goes, but it will not be that 3, 4, 5% daily ROI because that is impractical to continue any further. What is a plan to save this Project Epic Dad bot? I've answered that already. We're not going to let the project die. That was part of what we did yesterday, and the executive decisions that were made where many people got upset, but they'd be even more upset if the protocol died in a week or so because we were not able to sustain the protocol. So this is our way forward from here. A lot of these are relatively repetitive, so I do apologize for speaking very fast, but a lot of this we've already answered or gone over. So there has been a lot of, this is a decent discussion. I'll actually go into this a little bit. So shout out to Santa Banta and many others, is fixing the cost of the NFTs to an actual dollar cost or an AVAX cost, right? So if you say that dollar cost, the Everest are going to be $1,000, and the lower the Polar price goes, the higher that the cost of it will be. That has been something we've seen with everything from Gala Games down to Cubo. Cubo did it relatively poorly. They said, hey, we're going to say you have to use your native token as well as a stable coin to implement the buy action, the minting of the node itself. Great in the short term, fantastic in the short term. Over time, though, it became an issue anyway. Then they dropped just like the others. But for a period of time there, they were one of the few that were skyrocketing. So there's pros and cons of things like that. I think right now where we are, the amount of Polar going back into the system is not very high, and that is a bit of a concern. So I'll let the core team navigate that. They are very clear on those different aspects. So that would be interesting to see how that does trend as we move forward. And there's a lot of action that could be taken on that end. So shout out, that's a pretty good question, good conversation, and good thought process to have. Then there's been another, okay, that's in reference to slide tax. So yeah, like I said, that could be positive in the short term, the slide tax, like what Thor implemented. I think it did help them in the long term. Even though you do see relatively the same amount of sell pressure over time, those who are going to elect to claim and sell every day, it'll at least give a boost back to the protocol. Gives you like a little bit of a pause without giving a true pause. So pretty good idea there. I think that is the gist of what is in those AMA questions. We are now 1 hour and 52 minutes in, and you know, I'm getting a little bit aggressive, but not super aggressive, of all the nonsense that we heard over the last 2 days, week, 2 weeks. None of you guys want to join my AMA. Not that I want you to fight with me. I'm just sad. I just want to talk to you guys. Just want to have a conversation. So maybe next week you guys may join me on the AMA and we can actually have a good conversation, a good debate, kind of go through some of the things that you have concerns about, which some of them are valid, and we can converse like adults, like professionals, get through what you're going through there. Because like I said, it takes a lot to get banned here from Polar. So if you're banned, you're not listening to this, obviously, unless you're looking it up on YouTube. So shout out to you if you've done that. And hit me up if you think you've been unjustly banned, and I'll review your case. But good chance you were spewing some true toxicity into the community. So take that for what it is. But I'd still love to have a conversation with the guys that are less happy with us. It's been a lot of positivity here, which is a bit of a relief for me. Not that I get super stressed out over these things, but it is stressful, man. Like, we are going through harder times. I'm crypto full-time too, as you guys know. So a lot of these things, they do impact all of us. The team is working so hard, and we do truly care about the community. You guys are what got us here. We will never forget that. So shout out to you guys for sticking around. I know the nodes locked you in. If some of you could have sold yesterday, maybe you would have, but you didn't because we're here with our nodes. So we will move forward from here. So shout out to you guys. I'll answer one more of these questions as they come in, as I kind of bring it to a close, because we're coming up on 2 hours and my voice is going to go over time. So will the reduced rewards go up again once Polar is doing better? So I'm going to be pretty straightforward and say I wouldn't necessarily count on it, but it is possible. Enor does these things with the intent of it being temporary, but it does require a true and significant reversal in what we've seen lately. If we do a total 180 and we are skyrocketing to the points that we were in February and March and even in early April, then yeah, of course, we wouldn't mind doing that. But I don't think that is the most realistic option. I think that we do need to take this where we are now and focus on the transition to the true long-term vision and not put Polar in a compromised position while we are transitioning to there. So that's a good question. I can guarantee you that if Enor can do it, he will. That dude's got a great business mind to him, but also a great heart. So he truly cares about you guys. You know, I truly care about you guys. But right now, I think the best thing for the protocol is to keep emissions low while we can build. So that is what I'm doing here for. And that's what I think our vision should be as we move forward. And shout out to you, Jedi Gizmo. Keep in mind your mention of a bright future, because that is what I'm here for as well. Trust me, guys. This is, I put so many hours into Polar that I am also a heavy, heavy investor, right? And a little personal note, not money that I've got from compounding, but I put 50,000 of new cash into the system shortly after V3 released. So, hey, I'm here with you. It's been, token price has gone down. I feel you. We got to work. And I truly believe in a long-term system. I think you guys know and have seen me interact with people. If I see an issue, I will say that there's an issue. And all the issues that I've seen, I have addressed very directly, right? So we are now trending towards a good spot. And I do truly appreciate what's going on with the future of Polar. And I truly appreciate your level of commitment and loyalty and even emotional connection to the protocol. So, hey, I still invest. When I tell you guys that I invest weekly, I invest weekly. That's what I'm doing here. I invest back into what helped me get to where I am in crypto. And it's been a great experience. I've had many long days, but hey, I'll keep doing it because I appreciate you guys every step of the way. So that is going to come to the conclusion of our weekly Polar Community AMA on this May 24th, 2022. Coming up on 2 hours of work. Shout out to you guys for joining in. I appreciate every one of you. Obviously, I'll be in the chat engaging with you as we move forward. Shout out to you guys as we maneuver this next week. And I'll catch you guys next week. Same time, same place here in the Discord. 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. UTC, UK and Australia. Not sure of your time zones. Shout out to you guys as well. So appreciate you guys, and I'll hit you guys up as soon as possible. Have a great week.